objective is to be able to solve problems using the Pythagorean theorem. This is chapter 7, section 3, and you will need a calculator for these problems. It would be a good idea to follow along and take notes on how to use the Pythagorean theorem to solve problems. The Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. The Pythagorean theorem only works in right triangles. A and B are called your legs, and there are two legs. They are the two sides of the triangle that make up the right angle. So they form the right angle. It really doesn't matter which side you call A and which side you call B. A and B are always the legs, and C is the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is opposite the right angle. So if you go opposite the right angle, that's how you find C or the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is always the longest side of the right triangle. The Pythagorean theorem works in every right triangle. So in example 1, we have a right triangle and we're missing one of the sides, x. If I look at where x is, it's opposite the right angle. So x is the hypotenuse. We are finding the hypotenuse in this problem. What we do is we first write the Pythagorean theorem. So your first step is always to write a squared plus b squared equals c squared. You're going to write the Pythagorean theorem and then you're going to plug in what you know. Remember, a and b are the legs. The legs are the sides that make up the right angle. So the legs are 9 and 12. It doesn't matter which side is A. It could be the 9 or the 12. I'll just let A be 9 and I'll let B be 12. And I don't know C. C is the hypotenuse. You could call it X here or you could call it C squared. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to find 9 squared. 9 times 9, 81. 12 squared is 144, and I know 81 plus 144 is going to equal the hypotenuse squared. Since 81 and 144 are on the same side of the equation, I'm going to add them together to get 225 equals c squared. Remember, when we solve equations, we always do the opposite. So the opposite of squaring, taking something to the second power, is taking the square root. So my last step here to find c is to take the square root of c squared. So the square root of 225 is 15. My label would be inches. So this side of the right triangle is 15 inches long. The hypotenuse would be 15 inches. All right, on example 2, here's my right angle. If I go opposite my right angle, the longest side is x, which is called the hypotenuse. So I'm trying to find the hypotenuse again. I start by writing a squared plus b squared equals c squared. I write the Pythagorean theorem. Then I plug in what I know. Well, the legs are a and b. They're the two sides that make up the right angle. It doesn't matter which one's a and which one's b. So I'll just let A be the 18 and B be the 15, and I don't know C. So I plug in what I know. Then I square 18 to get 324, square 15 to get 225, and I don't know C. And you could put X here if you want. You could say X squared or C squared. Since 324 and 225 are on the same side of the equation, I add those together to get 549. And this is what I get when I take c to the second power. Well, I just want to find out what c is. So I have to do the opposite of squaring c. I have to take the square root. So using my calculator, I'm going to take the square root of 549. To get about 23.4. If I round to the tenths, it would be a 23.4 feet. So the hypotenuse x, or c, is about 23.4 feet long. When you use your calculator, if you need help taking the square root, what you do is you hit the little light blue second key, then you hit the x to the second key, and then you put in 549. So if you were taking the square root of 549, the light blue second key at the top left, then x to the second, then 549, that will give you the square root of 549, which will be about 23.4 feet. That's if you have a scientific calculator. If you have a different calculator, you may have a square root button. On a scientific calculator, if you look at the x to the second button, above it is the square root sign. To get to the symbols above the buttons on the calculator, you hit the second, the light blue second key. All right, number 3. We're trying to find this side of the right triangle. Okay. If I look at this, the two sides that make the right angle are the legs. One is A and one is B. It doesn't matter which one's which. In this problem, C, or the hypotenuse, is 11. So I'm actually finding a leg. I'm finding one of the sides that make the right triangle. But every problem, you start by writing a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Then plug in what you know. Well, I'm going to let a be 3. I don't know b, so I could put b or x squared there. It doesn't matter. And c, the hypotenuse, is 11. Then I'm going to go ahead and find 3 squared. 3 squared is 9. Then I'm going to find 11 squared, which is 121. I cannot add 9 and 121 together because they're not on the same side of the equation. I need to solve this equation for x to the second. So what I need to do is take away 9 to get x to the second equals 112. Then I'm going to do the opposite of squaring a number, which is take the square root. So I'm going to take the square root of 112. It's not going to be a whole number. If I round to the nearest tenth, it'd be about 10.6 centimeters. So x here would be 10.6 centimeters long. Okay, on number 4, I'm looking where the x is, and I'm noticing it makes up the right angle. So it is one of the legs. It doesn't matter whether I label it A or B. I could let this leg be A and this leg be B. The hypotenuse is always opposite the right angle. C. C is the hypotenuse. You start by writing the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Plug in what you know. Well, if I look over here, I don't know A. I could leave it A, or I could just put x. B is 24. So I'll have 24 to the second, and c is 30. So this would be 30 to the second power. Then I'm going to square 24. So when I square 24, that would be 576. 30 squared is 900. I cannot add 576 and 900 together. They're not on the same side. I have to solve my equation for x. So first I take away 576. And I get x to the second equals 324. But that's not what x is, that's what x to the second power is. So now I need to take the square root. I need to do the opposite of squaring a number, which is taking the square root. So I'm going to take the square root of 324, and it turns out to be a whole number. It's exactly 18 centimeters, which this side right here would be 18 centimeters. So the Pythagorean theorem is used to find the missing side of a right triangle. All right, if you look at number 5, here's my right angle. If I go opposite my right angle, there's x. X is the hypotenuse. It's the longest side of the right triangle. So in this problem, I'm trying to find the hypotenuse. But what I do on every problem is I write the Pythagorean theorem to start, and I plug in what I know. Well, A and B are the legs. It doesn't matter which one's A and which one's B. I'll just let 15 be A and 7 would be B. So I would have 15 squared plus 7 squared equals x squared. Then I'm going to square 15. So if I square 15, I'll get 225. Square 49. I'm sorry, square 7 to the second, or square 7 to get 49. And then I'm going to add 225 and 49 together because they're on the same side of the equation to get 274. That's what x to the second equals. I just want to know what x is. So I have to do the opposite of squaring. I have to take the square root of both sides. When I take the square root of 274 in my calculator and round to the tenths, I'll get 16.6 centimeters. So the length of the hypotenuse is 16.6 centimeters, which makes sense that it should be longer than 15 and 7. If the legs are 15 and 7, the hypotenuse has to be longer than 15. It should be the longest side of the right triangle. Okay, look at number 6. On number 6, I'm noticing x is at the bottom here, and here's my right triangle. If I go opposite my right triangle, this is my hypotenuse. So they're telling me the hypotenuse is 25, and the legs are 15, and I don't know. So I'm trying to find this missing leg. I label the legs A and B. I'll just let 15 be A. And I write the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. I plug in what I know. A is 15, so this is 15 to the second. B, I don't know, is x to the second. And C is 25, so that would be 25 to the second. Then I square 15 to get 225. I square 25. 25 squared would be 625. And then I'm solving my equation for x. So I'm going to do minus 225 first to get the x to the second by itself. And I'll get x to the second equals 400. And then I do the opposite of squaring x. I take the square root. So the square root of x to the second would just give me an x. The square root of 400 is 20. So the missing side is 20 millimeters. This would be 20 millimeters long. Which, if I look at my right triangle, that answer sounds reasonable because it has to be less than 25. The longest side is the hypotenuse, and the hypotenuse is 25. So 20 does make sense for one of the legs. Okay, so hopefully you're feeling really good about the Pythagorean theorem. Okay, hopefully you're at a 5 or maybe a 4. Our homework today is page 304. We're going to do on page 304, not 3 to 11, but numbers 3 to 12 all. This is in the Big Ideas website. So you're going to go to the Perry Township website. You're going to click Evaluate, and then you're going to click Big Ideas. And once you get to Big Ideas, what you do is you click Assignments, and you should see that assignment there. Please feel free to email me if you have any questions. And if you need extra practice, you can try lessons on IXL.